Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and this week we are celebrating System Bionicle with the reveal of the LEGO Bionicle 2023 Tahu and Takua GWP, and what better way to do that than to give us a full review of Sokoda's Legend of the Bionicle model. This was kind of the System Bionicle model that started it all. Obviously, this had a very long history, first kind of going through the LEGO Ideas process, and then going through the Bricklink A4 Designer program, but this is just such a cool and detailed model. I had to build it myself, and thank you so much to Sokoda for actually making instructions for this, and we can't wait to get into the review. So this review will be split up into a couple of different parts. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is that honestly I think there's a lot of points that need to be addressed surrounding the, not really controversy, but a lot of the, I guess, details around how the set could have been and almost was made into an official LEGO set, but just wasn't quite made into a set. So I do kind of want to address the history and background behind the set. That'll be probably the first half of the video, like the first 15 minutes, and for the rest of the 15 to 20 minutes, that will be just a full review of the model. So if you only are here to check out the review, I have linked in the description below the timestamp for when the review starts and when the kind of history and background explanation behind this starts as well. But so, without further ado, I think it's time we jump right in and go back into the history of how did the Legend of the Bionicle came to be? Did it almost become a LEGO set? What were the different processes it went through? Let's jump in right now. At long last, this is the custom Bionicle Legends model made by Sokoda, which had a very long history throughout potentially being made into a LEGO set twice, but unfortunately not quite making the cut. So I think it's important to talk a little bit about the history behind this model and why it is so important to the Bionicle community and exactly what happened in terms of its development. All the way back before 2021, I believe it was around 2019 or 2020, Sokoda developed this particular project as a LEGO Ideas project to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Bionicle, which landed in 2021. This set reached the required number of votes for LEGO Ideas, which is the 10,000 votes, and went on to be considered to be a LEGO set. Now around this time, I basically heard nothing but positivity for this model. If there was anyone who was saying that this model wasn't really what they were looking for Bionicle, there wasn't really anything that I could see, at least around the time that this was being voted in. At the time, specifically, the Bionicle community was really excited about this model potentially becoming a LEGO set, and LEGO acknowledging it in the 2021 design review would show that maybe they actually consider Bionicle as something they want to bring back or acknowledge at some particular point. Now, if anyone knows how LEGO Ideas operates nowadays, you'll know that the options are very, very limited for what's made into an actual set. Oftentimes, 30 to 40, even 50 projects will go into review at once, and LEGO will maybe only choose 1 or 2 projects out of those massively high numbers of approved projects for one review. A lot of fans have been asking for them to revise the Ideas program and to make more votes be needed, but LEGO is reluctant to add any major changes to the program, especially because it got a sudden surge of popularity during COVID, and they're wondering if that popularity spike will die down. So as of right now, nothing major is changing for LEGO Ideas. The program will remain the same, but as a result, there are a lot of projects that unfortunately a lot of work and effort gets put into them, from campaigning them to really trying to make them push through to be official sets, but unfortunately they just never make the cut, not really because of any fault of the set, but because the timing just didn't work out. One thing that LEGO has been trying to do with Ideas nowadays is try to make every single set coincide with an anniversary. Unfortunately, while this would have coincided with the 10th anniversary of Bionicle, there were other more important anniversaries LEGO wanted to capitalize on, like the anniversary of Home Alone, and more recently there's the Sanderson sisters' Hocus Pocus Cottage, which is celebrating an anniversary and a reboot for Disney, and it's a lot of licensed properties that LEGO wants to capitalize on for making the most money and making the most popular sets, which definitely makes a lot of sense. As a company, it's what they should do. If you only could choose a couple of projects out of 50, you want to choose the ones that are most viable to be the most popular. And as cool as this model is, it's honestly very, very niche. Mostly the average LEGO fan probably would be very confused as to what exactly this is supposed to be. Imagine that you knew nothing about what Bionicle was, and you saw this. I don't know what you would make of this. I mean, it's clearly supposed to be a facade for an island and whatnot, and you have, I guess, some sort of faces in the background and some sort of a figure here, but without the connection to Bionicle's story, this would have a very hard time selling, especially to hardcore Bionicle fans, because they're the only ones who would probably be going to buy the set, and hardcore Bionicle fans were fans of Bionicle mostly because of the construction plus action figure building system. Now, LEGO has long discontinued the G1 Bionicle building system. They have destroyed the molds, and they've done the same for CCBS, the character and creature building system popularized by Hero Factory and G2, so there definitely wasn't any chance of LEGO revising the project to include a buildable figure. And even if they did somehow manage to cram it in, that's not really the point of the project. The point is to celebrate the story of Bionicle and what it can represent in terms of a system model. But then again, you will have a lot of fans who just simply will not get it because they only liked Bionicle for the action figures. And that's totally fine. If you only liked Bionicle for one particular thing, you shouldn't feel forced to get something you don't want to get. But it is just unfortunate that this is probably the most viable model we would have ever seen for a LEGO Bionicle model in the modern age, and it just didn't quite make the cut in terms of being made into an official set. So the review period came and went, and for many fans, that was the end of it. We thought that was the end. Now, I remember on the day the results came out, there was a lot, and I mean a lot, of fan outrage about this. Bionicle fans were very angry and upset that this was not made into an official LEGO model. To an extent, I kind of understand where the anger and vitriol came from, although, to be honest, I didn't necessarily really expect it to ever be made into a model, because while I really loved the design and thought it was a really cool build, and I always wanted to build it myself, I definitely didn't feel that LEGO would be likely to accept it as an actual official LEGO Ideas project, especially considered the sets it was competing against, specifically sets that were tied to anniversaries, where obviously LEGO wants to capitalize on anniversaries and new movies based on major Disney or movie properties. Now, for a long time we thought that was the end of it, until in 2021, or around the end of 2020, LEGO announced the Bricklink Designer Program, the Bricklink AFOL Designer Program, which was a way to revive previously rejected 10K sets from LEGO Ideas, so sets that were supported but never were made into official sets, in the form of crowdfunding. And here's how this worked. There were 7 sets up on the docket for the particular bracket that this particular Bionicle set was going to be in, and out of the 7 sets, only 5 of them would be made into official LEGO models. Specifically, the first 5 models to receive a minimum of 3,000 orders would be made into official sets. So not only did they need at least 3,000 people to be interested in purchasing this model, you also needed 3,000 people to be interested in purchasing this before any of the other 6 models that this was competing against. Taking a look at what it was competing against, you had the Castle in the Forest, which was basically the only sign of some sort of a reboot for modern Castle that we were getting in today's day and age. That one was a surefire hit, and you bet, within, I believe, under an hour, I think it was 45 minutes, the Castle in the Forest sold out. It was incredibly, incredibly popular. The other sets on the list were a working particle accelerator, which unfortunately was not funded, as well as the kakapo, which was an endangered bird species that's a really cute kind of brick-built bird. We had the Pursuit of Flight, which was a kinetic sculpture celebrating the history and wonder of flight, featuring different aircraft. We had a working sheriff safe, and that was actually a working combination lock, so a pretty cool mechanism, and a great fishing boat, which is kind of our first realistic style of LEGO boat that is 2 minifigure scale, which definitely would have proven to be a very popular one, and sure enough, that one also sold out within a matter of hours. So, in terms of the prices, the Castle in the Forest cost $180, which sold out within 45 minutes, because obviously there's big demand for Castle. The boat sold out immediately as well, I believe within a few hours, for $130. Then came the Sheriff Safe, which sold out for $50, Pursuit of Flight for $55, and the Kakapo for $80. Unfortunately, Bionicle Legends did not make the cut. It didn't even reach half the number of pre-orders it was supposed to reach within the first amount of time that this was open on the day it was available. Now, there are a lot of factors to this, and I
want to address a few of those factors before we get into the review. So I will mark the review in the timestamp below if you just want to see the review itself, but I did want to address some of the kind of controversies and issues surrounding the set before we dive into things. So first of all, the set was available for $120. After building it myself, I can say that that price is more than fair, especially considering the current pricings of LEGO sets. This is a very, very solid and detailed model. It is a very heavy build. Picking it up, this has a lot of substance to it. It has a lot of weight to it. Now, it may not be immediately obvious, but every single one of these little details is its own individual piece. You've got individual little curved pieces, little bits and pieces of rock, even secret areas, and we'll talk about this a lot more when we get into the review, but there are even little secret areas hidden away here for interior detail and stuff like that, so there's all sorts of crazy amounts of detail just being managed to fit into this particular build. From Black Spike Mountains in the back here, to the aquatic life of Mari Nui, to of course the incredibly detailed rockwork of the Matanui Beach. A lot of pieces went into this. Specifically, this contains 1,573 pieces, which for $120 is way better price than most LEGO sets that are comparable today. Taking a look specifically at other LEGO Idea sets that are also $120, the Office set only included 1,164 pieces, so less than this, and the LEGO Ideas Fender Stratocaster guitar was also $120 but only came with 1,074 pieces. With this coming in at 1,573 pieces, this easily would have been a 130, 40, even 50 plus LEGO set if it came out as an official set today. There is no denying that the price was absolutely fair for what you're paying for this particular model, especially when you consider the piece count and the amount of detail included. Now, a lot of Bionicle fans I have seen online, following the failure of this set to be launched as a crowdfunding set, there was a lot of backlash not towards the right places, in my opinion. First of all, there was a lot of backlash towards the creator Sokoda. I think that is entirely and wholly unfair. If you want to blame somebody for not actually having the set be funded, I would personally just blame the Bionicle community for not funding it. Again, it's not a bad thing that you don't pay for sets that you don't want, but it is objectively the fault of the Bionicle community for not actually getting this to be funded. If you wanted this to be funded as a set, it's not really Sokoda's fault that this didn't happen. I've seen a lot of vitriol appear about the set online afterwards saying, oh, it never stood a chance because this isn't what Bionicle fans want. We don't want a system diorama, we want action figures, and I'm sorry to tell you that that time is unfortunately past. Unless you want an action figure that is completely built out of system, which, I mean, is very nice if you do want that, and, I mean, we did just get one this year, so I mean, there is hope for System Bionicle yet. So unless you were looking for something like this, you're not going to get a return to the original format of LEGO Bionicle. Again, those molds have been long destroyed. LEGO revealed in a recent book that they put out that it costs them more money to save molds and hang on to them than to destroy them and potentially remake them if it ever comes again a time that they need to remake a mold. So it doesn't make sense for LEGO to hang on to the CCBS or G1 molds. The G1 molds are also inherently flawed and actually are prone to cracking, especially compared to the improvements they made to joints in recent history, so there was not a chance that, especially through this program, we would be getting a construction figure. The other complaint that I was seeing is that, oh, well, it didn't include any specialized pieces and all the decals are stickers and it didn't have any minifigures. The thing you have to realize is that this was a Bricklink A-Fold Designer program set. Builders were essentially boxed in with a very, very limited color palette and range of pieces they could build from. The original design proposed minifigures, but they couldn't exactly do custom figures for a custom LEGO set. Stickers was honestly even a stretch. I didn't even think they were going to provide stickers at all. So it was nice to see stickers actually being offered in the original model, but that was basically the extent to which they were going to get support from LEGO from. There were not going to be any new printed pieces or anything like that being introduced for these particular models. It essentially was just going to be built out of existing stuff. So, knowing the constraints, I think that this model basically did the best it could given the circumstances of what constraints it was given for this particular type of build. The other thing that I've seen a lot of people talk about was the distribution of the set. A lot of folks complained that the Bricklink A-Fold Designer program wasn't available in their country, or the site was really buggy. which it was. It's Lego. They used Lego.com, so it was very, very buggy on launch. There was a lot of times I tried to put in my cart and it just deleted from my cart, and I had to keep on refreshing the page and being redirected to a waiting screen and all that. But here's the thing. Everybody buying sets on that day faced these exact issues. All the Castle fans buying Castle in the Forest faced these exact same website issues, and they still managed to make the Castle in the Forest set sell out within 45 minutes. Yes, the website was very buggy, and that absolutely turned a few people off from purchasing this model or purchasing any model, but the point is, all of the models were on the same exact playing ground here. There was not there's not any sort of unfair bias towards Castle or towards another set, like the page didn't load any faster if you were buying Castle versus this. If anything, it probably loaded slower because there was just such a higher demand for it. So I think that the statement that it was unfairly rigged against Bionicle, that the website kept breaking and it wasn't fair, just doesn't really hold up much water to me because, again, it was on the same playing field as every other set. Now, the last thing that I've seen is a lot of folks saying that, well, this set was doomed to fail because LEGO will never actually make a construction set, which is what a lot of Bionicle fans want, and a lot of Bionicle fans just will not accept a system set like this. I didn't hear any of that when this set was being proposed as a LEGO Ideas set, but honestly, I don't really know. I mean, it's up to you as a fan to choose what you want to buy. I do think this was our best way of showing that there is a monetary support and demand for Bionicle in today's modern day and age, even if it's system. But maybe there's not. Maybe this proves that there isn't a demand for System Bionicle because we had the opportunity to crowdfund it into existence and specifically did not meet the requirements. I believe, looking back at my older videos on this, it looks like this only got around 1,200 or so pre-orders, not even the halfway point that it needed. It again needed 3,000 in order to be put into production, which is a shame. Now, following this, Bricklink put out a statement saying that they would be releasing instructions for all of the rejected sets. Now, we waited a very long time for this to happen, and unfortunately, I believe that was just a promise they made that will not be fulfilled. They have not made any further statements regarding instructions being released, and they have removed the statement saying that they would release instructions for the uncancelled. Now, unfortunately, I think that statement is just simply coming to be not true. They have not made any updates on that front, and they've actually removed the original statement which said they would put out instructions for the sets that was not crowdfunded, so I don't think we're ever getting instructions for the other crowdfunded sets. But thankfully Sokoda came in handy, he came in clutch, and provided digital instructions, I believe just a few months ago, for this particular model, and now I have finally built it and have it to review for all of you. So enough about that. We have spent 15 minutes talking about the history and controversy behind this model. As a TLDR, I just want to say that the journey that this model had was absolutely amazing, and I think it really shows the passion of Bionicle fans that 10,000 people showed up to support it on LEGO Ideas. It's just a shame that we weren't able to bottle even just a small fraction of those 10,000 voters to actually purchase the set when it was made available. Now, I've seen a lot of comments of people saying, well, they didn't know about this, or they didn't even know what Bricklink was, or how to purchase this, again, wasn't available in their country, and I think it's definitely a shame that this definitely could have used a little bit more marketing. I thought this was a surefire success when this first came out. I will fully admit that a lot of people have said, like, oh, you put out clickbait videos saying Bionicle is back in 2021. I thought that it was 100% back. The moment that LEGO announced that this was going to be available for crowdfunding, I thought, oh, for sure, this is going to beat the Kokobo. This is going to beat the Sheriff Safe. This is probably going to beat Pursuit of Flight. It's the Bionicle set that everybody has been wanting for a long time, and it's the most viable Bionicle system option. How could it lose? And unfortunately, I was wrong, and I will have to say, I mean, I wasn't trying to mislead anyone when I said Bionicle was back in 2021. I mean, it was gonna be back. This was our chance to bring it back. It just unfortunately did not get the funding it needed, and that's just a big shame, and I really wish it did. But you know what? It is what it is. Thankfully, Sokoda has provided instructions for anyone to build this, so if you wanted to build this set, and you did not get a chance to get it, or you maybe didn't get a chance to crowdfund it or something, but you want to pay to build the set, the instructions are available for free. The parts list is available for free. He has uploaded these stickers as a kind of printable document, which you can print on sticker printing. I actually got these printed at a shop overseas, but specifically you can very easily just get these stickers printed pretty much anywhere. And there you have it. This is exactly, pretty much exactly, what you would have seen for $120 for the Legend of the Bionicle or Bionicle Legends model set that would have been released in 2021 or around 2022 if this had been made into production. Without further ado, after all this talking, let's get into the review of the main model itself. So obviously, as you can see here, this is a full-on diorama celebrating the history of LEGO Bionicle. And what I really love about this is that they actually managed to incorporate some special friction type of pieces to be able to keep the base steady on the bottom. As you can see here, you have the friction kind of Technic pieces which are squished down, which really give this a base that is not easily moved around. This will not be moving around or sliding around anytime soon, and it really does facilitate the spinning function where you can actually rotate the different models that are featured in the set, which is really fantastic to see because that is a really cool way of keeping it adhered to a particular base. As you can see, it's really hard to wobble this around, and you still have some Bionicle detail around here, so you've got the G2 gear pieces with tubes on the inside that kind of represent the Bionicle building system. And what's really cool is that if you read the Bionicle text, you've actually got different text logos here. So you have Bionicle reading out here, and then you have the three virtues. So you've got Unity, Duty, and Destiny on this side, all written out, which is just really cool to see them being spelled out in stickers for the Bionicle language. And one of my favorite things about the model actually is just being able to see the Bionicle font and text being used here kind of in a modern style of build. Starting off, I think this is the part of the set that makes the most sense to start off with because it is chronologically the first thing that you would be greeted with. It also is the most parts heavy out of all these different modular diorama builds, so I think it makes sense to start with this. And this is the beachfront scene of Motunui, the island of Motunui, which was popularized in the Motunui online game. And there are a lot of really fun and recognizable details here for fans of the original online web game and people who played it. First of all, you can see probably the most iconic Bionicle image yet, which is Tahu emerging from his canister, which has washed ashore on a golden beach on the island of Motunui. I love how Sokoda has built the waves here to really have kind of a rippling effect. You have the white-tipped edges like the foam kind of cascading onto the beach, the canister itself being held in at an angle, and you even have a little sticker representing the original footprints of the Tahu figurine as he makes his way over to the Charred Forest, which was the first location that Tahu kind of made his way to as shown in the original Motunui online game. I like how it's very simply represented here by just a couple of different kind of black skeleton arms, but you can very clearly see what they're supposed to be, the kind of black trees of the Charred Forest. In the center there you have the kind of Motunui head statue, which was of course the entrance to the Borok Hives, and more on that in a second. And then, moving over here, you actually have some of the other detail, like the Great Telescope here, with, of course, the classic kind of green crystal gem that always is spying the red star in the sky. You've got the staircase leading your way upwards, and you even have a little pedestal for the build recreation of the Legend of Motunui itself, featuring Motunui and Makuta. And I have to say, it's actually really funny how similar that is to the official LEGO model version, which is included in this year's Tahu and Takua promotional gift with purchase set. The builds are almost identical, using the same exact egg piece and pretty much similarly stacked kind of 1x1 black plates or gray plates in this case. So very cool to see that very similar build being used by an official LEGO designer as well. Moving onwards though, the rockwork for the coast of Motunui is remarkable. It's almost too detailed for what it needs to be. I was utterly amazed by how this was put together from all sorts of different slopes and studs on the side building techniques. This is definitely a very advanced build, and you really get an immense level of detail when you actually are able to play around with this, something that I really respect about the model itself. Of course, you have the sun and the red star floating above overhead. Very nice that that detail was added. And then you have kind of Mount Ihu and the slopes on the top here, kind of peaking the top of the mountain here. What's very cool is that, as I mentioned earlier, this actually has a bit of a secret. Removing this reveals the Borok Hives underneath, and that is just such a very cool thing to see because when you remove this here, You'll notice a Borak kind of on the other side here, and there even is a Tannock right there. It's just a really simple red ball joint there, but it's kind of housed inside here with the Borak canisters on the wall there. So a very nice Easter egg. I did not even know that that was there until I put it together myself, and that was just so cool to just find during the building process, to just see how it was to put together, and then to fully close it up. It's really satisfying and really easy to open as well. Everything here sticks together, so when you lift the mountain up, everything comes off as one particular plate, and it just feels so satisfying to reveal that little hidden feature, which definitely added a lot of parts to the set itself, but I think was definitely worth it to include. You've got a really nice feature of the rockwork here of kind of an angle between the walkway over to the Great Telescope itself, and all in all, this is probably my favorite aspect of the diorama, is the Motunui Island aspect. It's just so cool to look at. Moving onwards, though, we can take a look at the next crucial moment of the story, which is Motoro donning the Kanohi Ignika for the 2007 Toamari plotline. So this depicts the famous comic page where Motoro sacrificed his life to save Motunui and to save his universe. Very cool to see this represented in brick-built form, and unfortunately we were not able to get minifigures, but as a side effect of that, we got this very cool buildable Motoro figure, which honestly, I think is even cooler than anything we would have gotten for a standard minifigure. He has his Kordak blaster in the form of a stud shooter here, which is very cool to see as a detail. I like how his weapon is built as well in system form, and he's got this gold helmet here, which is meant to represent the Ignika, which honestly, working with the parts that were available, I think that is totally okay, and you have him kind of submerging into the depths, and that is just a really cool way to depict it. My favorite thing about this are the way that the heads of the previous iterations of Motoro are built. You have his Motoran version, specifically using the Akaku here, which is a really nice brick-built representation of it, and then you have the Kanohi Eden, the Mask of Spirit here for his Ignika form, which is also very cool to see being rendered in brick-built form, and of course you have some of the wildlife of Marinui as well. This looks like one of the small fish, or maybe one of the squids even, that's kind of swimming past. You've got a crab, could that be Jallar's Hana crab? Perhaps. You've got some of the kind of just the seaweed and the coral kind of forming the details around here, and even a jellyfish, which the color scheme is very reminiscent to the jellyfish that we actually got in the System Bionicle sets back in the day, so very cool to see that being included. And overall, just a really dynamic scene here. It is at a completely different scale to the other model, but it's totally okay, and one thing I really do like is that you actually have a little bit of layering going on in terms of the depth of the kind of crevasse here. It makes it feel like he's falling into kind of an undersea river or something like that. Just a really cool usage of parts overall, and I think this is just one of the coolest looking dioramas, especially depicting a very abstract design, showcasing his past selves or his past lives looking on in their mask form as kind of 2D or flat sculptures as he descends into the depths. So very, very cool, very interesting design to translate from comic page to build, but I think it was pulled off really well. While this may be one of the more simple designs when it comes to the terrain, the focus is on Motoro himself and not the terrain, and thankfully, because there were a few less parts used on this particular part of the model, we can now look at this part of the model, which is featuring the duel between Motunui and Pterodax, the final battle, the final showdown that ended the entire Bionicle theme on the sands of Barra Magna with the two other planets floating overhead. Now this is a really cool design, and I really appreciate how Sokoda spared pretty much no expense when it came to crafting the stickers and decals of these models. From the toes of the Great Spirit Robot going up to the shins, he's even got the chest printing and the headpiece. That is just so accurate, and it's very cool to finally have a somewhat official build for the Great Spirit Robot. You also have an alternate sticker, an alternate piece being used for the head with the green eyes if you want to showcase it being inhabited by Motunui instead of Makuta, so that's very cool that they actually included this as an extra piece. I really appreciate the inclusion of that. And of course you have Aqua Magna and Bota Magna hovering overhead, just cool to see those details there. And then finally you have the prototype robot here, the Motunui robot, so you've got his special sticker for the head and the chest plate here, and I think the overall design of these robots are really, really cool, and definitely the best that could have been done, especially built out of standard system bricks while keeping them both posable and functional at the same time. One thing I really like here is just the amount of detail that they managed to pack in, with spectacular attention being included with particular attention being paid to the Skrull maze there. That is actually a sticker there being used for the Skrull shield. It's very hard to see here, but that is kind of the Black Spike Mountains here. That's the entrance to the Valley of the Maze, so very cool to see that there. And you've also got like the Roxtus kind of area here in the battle arena, so lots of nice details being factored into something that is pretty much almost fully covered up. You also have some of the jungle kind of aspects here, the 3 villages of the jungle tribe of Tsara, so you've got kind of these 3 spikes here representing that, which is very cool to see. And of course you have the river kind of flowing downwards. You have some clouds of dust being kicked up by the robots themselves, and little bits of, maybe these are supposed to represent like people fighting on the ground or something like that, or armies clashing on the ground while these 2 colossal foes fight. One thing I like about this particular aspect of the build is the use of 3D perspective with the clouds. So you have some clouds being kind of extended by these clear rods to extend outwards, which is a very cool thing to see. You've got one here also extended outwards, and then you have some in the back, and I just love the way the clouds are built. I just think they're really cool. And of course, you have the red star as well hovering overhead following the Great Spirit robot. All in all, this is a phenomenal build, and for 1,546 pieces, I think that the value of this, which would have been $120, is phenomenal, especially compared to any other LEGO product offering. Now, you may say that a lot of those pieces are small, and a lot of them are for small details, but that's kind of how LEGO is today. If you want something to look really good, a lot of it will be made up of small details, and this really does a lot with the parts that it uses. There's a lot of stuff going on here in terms of the display stand and the fact that you can spin it around and take a look at it from all sorts of different angles. This is the ultimate Bionicle model for fans of the story, and I highly recommend that you do go check out the building instructions that Sokoda posted linked below, and if you want to, maybe try building it yourself. I ordered all the parts for this off of Bricklink, and I believe it cost me around $130, maybe $40 after shipping, so it was a little more expensive than it typically would have been if you were to just pre-order it on the day of. But as it is, I think it definitely was worth it to put together. It is just such a phenomenally detailed model, and I just love the amount of detail that went into creating a build like this. Just so cool to see this finally realized in physical form, and I can't wait. I definitely am kind of on a Sokoda building binge right now. I'm trying to build like all of his custom models, so next up I'm going to be reviewing his custom, or I guess kind of a model he used to recreate a canceled Ninjago set. I also will be wanting to build some of the other stuff he's posted instructions for, because Sokoda is one of the most talented builders of our time, I think, and I do not say that lightly. It's just so cool how he is able to build sets that feel like they could be official LEGO models. This almost was an official LEGO model. It was almost an official model twice, and he's able to do it and add so much detail in, so many nice references and nods to the Bionicle theme, and I cannot wait to see what other models he has in store, because this is just so cool. And do go show him some support and love over on Twitter and on social media, and go follow his new channel. He is part of the kind of new TTV relaunch channel, which is super exciting, called Keep the Peace, and yes, that is peace in terms of LEGO peace. So I've linked that in the description below as well. Do go check them out, and yeah, just super cool to have this model be fully physically built. Sokoda, if you ever want to appear on Duck Bricks, if you're watching this, please, I would love to interview you. Let's make it happen, because I would love to know more about the thought process behind the development of the set and any behind the scenes info you can share, because I'm a big fan. I've been following this set ever since it was a LEGO Ideas proposal, and it's just so cool to finally have it in hand. Thank you for providing instructions, and that has summed up our review of BIONICLE Legends.
Alright, and with that, we have summed up our look at Sokoda's BIONICLE Legends. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of this model? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you think that it could have been a really solid LEGO set, and what would the LEGO set have looked like? Again, this is basically what the actual Bricklink AFO Designer set would have been, because the instructions are just based off of that program. I think it is so cool that we were able to actually get instructions for this, so folks who do want to build it can actually build it themselves, and the price was actually really fair for the amount of detail included in the model. And so with that, we have summed up our look at BIONICLE Legends, continuing this week where we are celebrating System Bionicle and the amazing BIONICLE 2023 GWP. Thank you all so much for tuning into Duck Bricks. Like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.